this rain this evening, and welcome back to school. With that, let's stand and have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 4 is adoption of the agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to talk about before, pull or anything else like on the consent? Actually, I'll ask you that later. Can I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'm waterlogged. Second, please.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Call to the public. Do we have any cards? Okay, we'll just move on then. Item 6 is our family life curriculum public hearing. We've already had one. This is our second. And we will need to open the public hearing with a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Okay, seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you much. All right. Okay.
So since we met last month and since we talked about it a couple months before that, we have not had anyone new come in to review the curriculum that was here. So I think altogether we had 2 people who've been at 2 of the 3 meetings that we've had about this. And so just to refresh the memory of everyone present, the curriculum being recommended for 7th and 8th grade is called Making a Difference. The focus is on healthy relationships, physical health, and well-being. The sexual health component is abstinence-based as required by Arizona statute. It's 8 modules and it'll be facilitated by the county health department. So they'll be here teaching it. We have a 9 to 12th grade curriculum that is called Making Proud Choices, 8 modules, again, focused on healthy relationships, physical health and well-being. The sexual health module is called Abstinence Plus, and it promotes abstinence while covering many other forms of family planning. All this is in line with statutory requirements, and once again, the health department will be working through Ms. Verder to provide that instruction at CVHS.
Fantastic. Do any of you have additional questions?
You had asked last time, do we have a way of knowing if somebody's clicked on it on the website or not? No, because it's like too much of a trail from the time they click on the website and all that, so.
Any questions from the board? Any teachers or administrators? Would you like to speak on the subject? Fantastic. With that, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving right along, Mr. Scholl, Superintendent Report.
All right. Staffing. We currently have 3 positions. We have bodies in the positions, but we have 3 positions that we're still looking for teachers. 2 of those positions we think will be filled with international teachers, and that we're waiting on visa issues. One's a J1 visa that should be here a couple months. The other one's a H1B that could be up to 5 months to bring them in. Once they're here long-term though. So it's worth the wait. And then also we have a while back, I think in January or February, you approved an autism program. We were excited to try to get that off the ground. Due to staffing concerns, we had to kind of temporarily postpone the start of that. We didn't have enough qualified staff members we only had 2 staff members for Nicole. How many kids were in there? 3 kids. And really you should probably have double that or more, just because of the nature of the students that are in the program. It's a heavy personnel.
These are particular students that are here that we're concerned about.
It's autistic students that are our students, right?
Yeah.
That we would normally send either to Ascend, or in a lot of cases they're homeschooled because they can't. In some of these cases they're actually going back to centers, but homeschooled or Ascend is maybe a better placement for them. So we just postpone that. Hopefully we can maintain the staff that we have and add to that and maybe bring it up at a later date. So it's unfortunate, but that's just, it's better, safer for staff, safer for the kids. And in one case, the staff member is filling another special ed position. In the other case, in the case of the paraprofessional, she is actually going to follow those kids back to centers at Territorial and service them. So, and she's going to continue with her specialized training in autism in order to do that. So, staffing wise, I think we're in better shape than some other districts. There's a report that came out that said, that has a huge number of staff. I don't even want to throw out the number, but a lot of districts that are still looking for teachers. Enrollment, there's a chart on here. This is a wild guess at best. We're still early, this is based on the first 2 days of school. You have basically student count. I pulled the numbers of enrolled kids. There's no shows, and you can see that there's kids that just haven't come. And then a projected ADM is I took what the state says is enrolled, which is different than our enrolled numbers. I'll explain that in a second. And then took out the no-shows on top of that. But we have, for example, right now, the state says that we only have about 110 kindergartners. Because if you think about kindergartners, they're not in the state system yet. So they haven't gotten into the system. So again, I anticipate another 50 or so ADM on top of this. That's not included just because of those new kids coming to the district haven't gotten into the state system yet. So again, a guess, best guess. Beginning of school update, kind of normal stuff. We seem to always have transportation issues, people getting used to buses. We had that. We had a nice rainstorm come down right about dismissal time, which we're going into these shelter in places or other events that we haven't had time to practice yet. So that, we got through that. The traffic was, we found out the police department, due to some staffing issues, wasn't going to be able to help us out. And we made a phone call to the Arizona Rangers, and they came out and had 4 or 5 of the Rangers that came and directed traffic for us. Huge help. I know John was out there at Tech, Cindy was, I was, and Carolyn Reeder was on staff side, in addition to all of Brandy's staff. So I think at day 2, there was a huge difference between day 1 and day 2. Hopefully today was much better.
Today was beautiful.
Yeah. So we got through that first day, which is the only day that parents are allowed to take their kids to class. After that, they get kind of stopped at the gate and said, it's time to let Janie or Johnny go on their own. And so that seemed to work out really well. Let's see. So the Arizona Rangers are a quasi law enforcement group. And so the Rangers are like the initial law enforcement that, so they look like a cop, they carry weapons, they carry batons. Usually they do, a lot of times you'll see them. They were saying that when talking to one of them, they were doing security for the fair. So it's, we've used them before, I think security at the corn dinner they've been, so you can call them in and they do community service. Usually, and they work closely with the police department. They actually contacted Chief Wynn to let him know that they were going to be out. And so there's various chapters all over Arizona, and they do the kind of help out community service, law enforcement type stuff. Yeah. Board training, a reminder on August 18th at 1 o'clock in this room. We have a board training on, it's going to be on the board procedures. Our candidates may want to show up if and partake. I know, Penny, you said you weren't going to be here.
Probably not.
Probably not. So the Arizona School Boards Association is providing the trainer. She will be here, I think it's 3 hours, 1 to 4. And so this was the first step that the board decided that you guys wanted to do in the process of the training over the next year or so.
And they'll be live, not virtual.
Correct, she's gonna be in person.
Yes.
That's something that we asked for.
3 hours of virtual is a long time.
Is it Nikki Whaley? Is that her name? Yeah. Facilities projects updates. Our HVAC roofing. Any change from this morning when we talked?
It's just been an interesting process, members of the board, superintendent. 6 more phone calls this morning. And now all 4 HVAC applications totaling 17 million and all 4 progressive roofing applications for the roof rehab are finally accepted by the school facilities board. Now there's still going to be more review, but at least all the different, what made it more complicated the last 6 weeks is since our June fire. Because our insurance has to come in and take that building over. There's fire and smoke damage. Once that's done, it comes back to the district, and then we bring in the HVAC and we bring in the roofing repairs. So it took a while to, it's hard to believe, but the SFB has 26 buildings at the high school, and there's about 5 different nomenclatures for each building. The architect had one, we had one, the school facilities board had one, the contractors had one, so we had to get those all on the same page. I think we got that all wrapped up, thanks to Chris Sheriff today.
So that's news since I wrote this. So they have been accepted by the staff. That's what I'm hearing.
So just make sure, John, is the contractor's proposals have been accepted by the
Yeah.
state? Great.
Yeah,
Next.
meaning the proposals I put in are now under review by our liaison
Yeah.
and her superiors.
Yeah, they haven't signed yet, I
Yeah,
understand.
we
but
don't have
they-
the terms and conditions back yet.
Yeah.
So, because they may have to cut, I'm not gonna say they're gonna ask the contractors to change their proposals. That's not what usually happens, but they may want more clarification. There may be, again, a period of review, usually is a week at least.
But they've met the state criteria for proposals, so they're in the office now, so to speak.
They see that our board did approve the 1 GPA contract. We did approve the job order contract process, and the contract part of it is legitimate. And the funding therefore will be secure from SFB once they approve it.
Good news.
So baby steps, but once this is approved and funded, it's still 18 months to 24-month process. So it's not going to happen overnight. The track, if you've seen the track, it looks fantastic, except for there's no lines on it yet. So we're waiting to hear back from the contractor to find out when the lines are going to be striped. The teachers waiting on a,
John, excuse me.
yes.
Has anybody been out this afternoon in the rain to make sure it's draining well and all?
I was there-
You were there?
I was there about an hour ago.
How's it look?
It sloped really well. I talked to Bruce Nesbitt in the maintenance department. He said he ran a glass over it. The inside curve, he said, is within it like 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So there's a nice crown at the upper edge of the track where it floats down towards the center. Maybe a foot of fall there over that 40 feet.
This is a great test this afternoon.
Yeah.
And then we do, on the field itself, there's grates that go into the drain into the retention pond that's on the east side of the field. So.
Thank you.
Teachridge, I looked in my mail at the beginning of the meeting. I think I have the proposal that I'm talking about here, waiting on a proposal from the engineering company, same one that did our HVAC for the design of the infrastructure and the fire lane and everything else. So once we move forward with that, depending on the cost that I'm bringing it back to you for approval, then we would go ahead and get the design going. And then once the design's done, then we do an RF request for bid for, or maybe we had talked about a request for proposal possibly for the, once the design's done, then a contractor could come in and be hired to do the actual work.
I hate to keep asking these questions.
Uh-huh.
Are we talking about one master contract, or are we gonna break it up into infrastructure, structures, and that sort of thing?
The way we're thinking about now is we think that we can do it as one contract. And then if people want to partner, they could choose to do that and then partner on it. But we know that there's local company, at least one that has the capability to do the whole project altogether.
So that's critical. You've got a good track record if you're gonna have a master development.
Right.
So that's the only reason I bring it up. I've heard too many horror stories of a sub that should never have been on the project.
Right.
Because the master contractor dated the guy's wife or whatever. I'm not gonna go there, but, okay, so we are going with the master
Yeah.
contract.
Tech Playground, there is a purchase order that was issued actually last week for about $95,000 for some playground equipment, additional playground equipment at Territorial. That is going to, I think there was a little bit of tax credit money, like $4,000 of that was tax credit, but a majority of it came out of ESSER that was already budgeted to come out of ESSER. So we're excited about that. And we may be coming back to you later about some additional work at the playground. So I imagine it's Lake Tech right now out there. So we want to try to work on that to alleviate some of the drainage issues at Territorial. Asphalt, in your consent agenda, there is a request to allow the staff to do an invitation for bid for asphalt services. We have some dirt parking lots that need to be asphalted, paved, in addition to kind of rehab of our existing asphalt. So that's another project. Fencing, I know there was some concerns about some of the fencing around the district. At Del Rio and Heritage, there was some perimeter fencing that was taken down. But that was because we have the interior fence, the interior security fencing that is in place where no one can get on campus without going through the front office. So that is already in place, and that perimeter fencing was just not really providing any safety concern, or it wasn't providing any safety at all. And so cars could go in and out even with that fencing. And to make it look more appealing at the campuses, we took that exterior fencing, most of it's gone right now. And so similar to what we did at the high school several years ago, put the interior fencing in place, took out the exterior fencing, then we can work on the outside aesthetics of the campuses. There was some additional fencing at Territorial that was done to allow a walkway from 1 East onto campus. We had parents that were parking on 1 East and walking on the driveway, interfering with the cars, so that it's a little bit safer there. That was done with the blue security fencing that apparently is, you can't climb over, and I won't tell you how that happened. Then that was it. Any questions on projects?
Which parking lots are you looking at?
So the 2 dirt parking lots, there's one in front of transportation over at Territorial that there's mostly staff use that.
All staff.
Yeah. And then there is at Del Rio, there is the one next to the office. So they're pretty heavily used parking lots and deserve to get that paving. And then really every other parking lot in the district needs some kind of maintenance for it. So we're not going to be able to do everything at once, but we can come up with a plan to kind of,
Some sort of.
do it over multiple years. But the 2 asphalt projects are pretty much needed. Any other questions on projects? So some curriculum projects. We talked about facilities projects. Some curriculum projects. The big one is we have a couple curriculum adoptions that are in the early stages. So when those get finished, they'll come to you for approval. We have 3 through 8 science and 3rd through 5th social studies. It's with the changes in technology and the amount of technology that we have on our campuses now, it's not certain that it would be an actual physical textbook. It could be electronic curriculum that we access through the Chromebooks that we have on campus. That's yet to be determined. We have right now, we have physical textbooks in place for some of our kiddos. In others, especially I'm thinking the math at K-8 math, it's actually disposable textbooks. They actually rip out the pages, and those are worksheets that they use and turn in. So this could be kind of the next generation of everything would be electronically done. The concern, and we need to make sure that if this is done, we can't necessarily give kids homework online because there's kids that don't have the ability to access, they don't have reliable internet or reliable devices at home, and we don't want to put them in a place that they can't do the work that we give them. So it would have to be work that could be done while they were at school and had access to the internet and the devices that we have available to them.
This may be premature, but do we know the cost difference between
You want to share
real
with that,
books
Cindy?
and a computer?
So if we have, when you buy, most textbooks, K-5 now are consumable, period. Like it keeps districts buying books, right? So if we buy print only, it actually comes with a digital subscription. It's called Blended. So it costs $2 more per student than buying digital only.
Thank you.
So it's not a huge differential, and then I'm in the process of speaking with all the different vendors, clarifying with them, of course, because science and social studies content are a little bit more controversial sometimes. I've discovered through questions that every textbook company I've spoken with so far has developed content specific to California, and they only vend it in California. So the rest of the United States uses common stuff that doesn't include things that are specific to California's standards. So that part I clarified that part. And then we hadn't really thought about adding 6-8 science this year. Once we got into it and I watched the first presentation, I'm like, yeah, we can do this too. So it rounds it out. We've been waiting for the standards to settle. Arizona science standards, although technically they're national science standards, still are pretty unique to Arizona. So we were waiting for textbook companies to catch up. It wasn't worth buying stuff and then having it not be accurate. So that's kind of where we are in the process. And we'll pilot some materials both at Del Rio and at Heritage as soon as we winnow the field down to 2 that are really like worth piloting.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Our October board meeting. Last year, we had our October board meeting in Colden, and we'd like to do the same this year. And just as a reminder, our October board meeting is on October 5th, which is a Wednesday. And the change is because the second Monday is during fall break. So we wanted staff here. So we've already contacted the community center in Paulden. They are available. We're working on, I know Mr. Livingston's working on getting the insurance certificate, which we have lots of time to do, and it takes no time to do it, to get to them so that we have that reserved. But Lawrence, hopefully you're available October 5th.
Sure.
And we can blast it out on the internet just like we do everything else. And hopefully we can get the message out and have more people attend. But I think it's important that we reach out to and do at least one board meeting a year out there. So
Are you coordinating with Paco's Facebook page people?
I don't know.
Okay, work with me and we'll see, because that's their main means of communication is they do have a live Facebook page. So I can work with you there. I don't know who runs it right now, but.
Well, and we can get our PIO to put, message them or get a message out and include them or
Yeah,
something like
I
that.
know we'll put it on our own,
Right.
but I think, they have an active
Yeah.
Facebook page
Yeah.
too.
Or we can link them, or if there's a way to put them in there. So,
Sure. But let me know and I'll
Yeah.
do whatever I can to
okay.
get that together.
The countywide ASBA meeting, this email came out today. It is in Sedona this year, and it is on October 20th, and it's down in the calendar down below. At the Sedona Performing Arts Center at 5:00. This is where other board members in the county get together and just talk about state and local issues. Superintendents also usually go. They've done it virtually, I think, the last couple of years.
Is that the one that we used to go to down in the valley?
No, that's the
No.
law.
No,
So this is-
that's something that we'll actually talk about later.
Okay.
This is just county schools.
Okay,
And this year, they are electing a county school representative, which is each county, Greenlee and Graham have one between them. But each county has their own representative that goes and sits on the ASBA board. So there will be an election to elect that representative from Yavapai County at this meeting.
I've been to several. They're really good
I
meetings.
think I want to, yeah.
So yeah, let Karen know. It's she'll sign up and everything else and and get you going. Again, it is in Sedona. That's the only downside. I think we've hosted it here. I know Prescott's hosted it. Humboldt might have been last year, and I didn't go last year.
I think it's virtual.
Was it the only? Yeah, I just said that. Yeah, so it's kind of all over. They try to kind of go on each side of the mountain every once in a while. So calendar 8/18 is the board training. Corn dinner 9/3. We should have tickets to the corn dinner next week. If you would like some corn dinner tickets, you can let Karen know. The ASBA Law Conference, I think Cindy and Peter, you both going? All right, anyone else?
I want to look at it and see.
You, there's no hotels,
Okay.
so we can try to get you a different hotel, but I know that my wife couldn't even get a hotel
The
that,
overflows.
yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
I mean,
Where is it this year?
Come back in.
Okay.
Is it really 15 days long?
Did I put 15 days? No, it's 9/7 through 9th.
22, got it.
So it's 3 days if you do the pre-conference. So it's just 3. We have our governing board meeting on the 12th again. Then on the October 5th, we have the one in Paulden, fall break, the countywide meeting and governing board elections on 11/8. All right. Any questions, concerns, comments for me?
Thank you. Item 7B1 is our financial review.
Okay, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent, staff, ladies and gentlemen, a quick look at the year ended June 30th of 2022, and a quick start at the first month of the 22-23 year. You've got several reports in front of you. I'll try to just summarize those. With the budget, we ended up last year with our M&O fund, 15.7 million. 4% of that was not spent or encumbered, so the year's closed. We brought about 4% of that forward. Capital, 58%, and 620 fund is our adjacent waste fund. We didn't spend anything in that fund last year. So end of last year, we had several funds with healthy cash balances in excess of $400,000. Our operating fund, our 010 fund, that's the new classroom site fund. We were able to take 3 of the old classroom site funds, 011, 012, 013, and take that 150,000 and move it up the street to 010, which brought it up to about 780,000. And that's going to be again just for teachers, and it looks amazingly strong again this year. Last year we went from 1.1 million in the 2021 year, revenues of 1.1 million to 1.7 million last year. And we divide that over our staff, and we're trying to income average. So if that 0.6% that funds classroom site goes down, we'll still have a nice cash balance to income average that for certified staff as long as possible.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there was a one-time payment last year that accounted for some of that.
Yes, and I was anticipating that would go down this year.
Yeah.
But we got our first payment for the 22-23 year, and it was 7,000 more than our average payment last year. So the state economy looks like it's,
They were doing
the
okay.
one time might have been absorbed. I haven't got a memo on that,
Uh-huh.
but if it continues, we'll have just as much, a little more than we did last year, which is 40%
Good.
more than we did. Any questions on last year end? So the first reports are for the year ended June 30th of 2022. The next reports, there's 4 pages there. At this time, we've got a budget that we're not really confident with. We've got student enrollment and ADM involved in that, but it's a good sign. There's still 26% of that that's not encumbered at this time. We're still missing, most salaries are in there, but there's still some utility payments that we've still got to get in. That's a really high number. We're not going to bring 60 or 26% of our 22-23 budget forward into the next year. We're not going to have that much. If we do 4%, we're doing really well for carry forward. But at this time, our encumbrances are quite low. 62% of our 610 capital fund is encumbered. We've got a long list of capital items to pick up this year. And 620 again is basically just a $100,000 levy. And we have plans to spend that again, and you'll be hearing more about those as the year goes by. So overall, the cash balance was over 5 million that we carried forward from last year to this year, which is a really positive sign. We're able to meet needs and do several things with staffing as well. We know we're going to need a bunch of that when staff come back from COVID funds back into our operating fund. So I don't have a lot more as far as last year. Any questions on?
John, just one real quick one on the next sheet, on the cash fund balance sheet.
For last year or for this year?
No, this is the current balance sheet, next page. Or am I jumping ahead too fast for you?
No, we're looking at
Current year.
Yeah,
22-23.
yeah, 22.
We start with the budget summary, and then we go to the cash fund balances.
Yes, cash fund, that's the sheet I'm talking about.
And that's the one in bold.
Yes, that
With
too.
the the ones that run on cash, so to speak, 010 at the top, 959 on the
I just have a
bottom.
real quick
Sure,
question.
there's one there.
Fund 349, our national card, as far as fees.
Yep.
What happened there? Why did we end up with that huge encumbrance? Do we have a particular expenditure for them?
Yeah, what we have there is, that's a great question. When we get our revenue from them, which we haven't got a penny yet this year, let's say we get 100,000. Let's say we got 100,000, we would turn around and send that 50,000 right back to them. So we get to keep 50, we receive it, where we turn around and send that back. Well, we know that we're also gonna be putting IT, our technology department, a lot of their, like, if you look at the ending cash, to see the ending cash, you have to look at the first year, because we haven't rolled our cash from last year into this year yet. We don't do that till the county says so, about October 6th, that's when we do that. So we ended that fund ended with 208,000 cash. So if our ID department spends 130, 140, 150,000 of that, we end with about 58,000, somewhere in there. If we spend 150, 208,000 to start with. But we're anticipating, those are encumbrances that our ID department already has in there, 131,000.
Okay. So basically, that is what what we are using those funds for, is going in to support our IT department.
And we're so blessed to have our ESSER funds that Cindy's been able to manage. And would you say, what would you say a percentage of those 5 million that we got from ESSER total? We'll spend on capital in IT, 30%?
No, not 30. That'd be,
Well, initially, ESSER won most of it.
well, yeah, ESSER one, but out of the 5 million,
Well, that's all of them. That's ESSER 2, ESSER 3, and the first one.
At
for-
least a quarter.
So those-
Well, he said capital items too, so.
other capital items, yeah.
Other capital.
Yeah, total capital items, yeah.
So that reliance on some of the COVID funds will go down, and our go-to fund then will be, as much as possible, 349 forest fees, which we haven't really touched much the last couple of years. All we had in expense there was the 105,000 for last year, and we know that about 60,000 of that was just returning half of it to the town.
Right.
So we only spent about 45,000 in that fund.
So all you're showing is that transfer into in effect, our operating funds.
If you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, that's from a novice standpoint.
But that's where we're at now. End of the year with 208,000. You will see that go up when we get our payment in the spring of probably 140, 150,000. And then we turn around and send 75 of that back to the county.
Right.
We have heard about one-time capital funds too, on this show, that we might see some more capital being dispersed in that fund at some point.
Well, they're actually behind. So they just kind of, whenever they get a payment, it's federal money. And so, and it only recently was in a bill to pay it. It's money that's collected. They just don't have the authority to pay the money. And so that is just recently, in the last spring, was in a bill, and I think it's going to be regularly in the fall for the next couple of years, hopefully.
Same process.
Yeah.
And on those funds, we may be able to keep only half. We may have to send half back.
Always.
Seems like
Yeah.
that's the way, because they have other needs at
Yeah.
county level.
Yeah, but we get a good amount out of, for example, they'll pay for all our elections this year, which can be quite pricey, tens of thousands of dollars would be our election cost. So the county picks up that using forest fees funds.
Total revenue in that fund last year, $194,310. We can anticipate probably similar this year,
Similar, yeah.
in addition to the 208,000 we started with.
That's already there, yeah. I was just curious, that's unusual when I saw that transfer out, just a big lump transferring out, and I figured something must have been going on, so appreciate the background as always.
And that's really, we just have those 5 funds that have cash in them that we didn't have that much cash last year. We start the year with a little over 5 million. Sure. These big funds.
Thanks, John.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for Mr. Livingston on those items? All right, you want to just move forward with student activity?
Student activity, we've had a few expenditures year to date. As you can see, the golf club did a fundraiser, and that is in the new year. So I'm looking at the new year student activities at $7,275. And then we had boys and girls soccer each ordered state rings, and those were ordered, some of those were ordered back in May, and then we ran into some cash issues, so some of them are paid for now. The plan is with boys and girls soccer rings to have them presented to the athletes that won those state titles at a football game sometime this fall. So hopefully, we're on schedule for that. Those are the two that we've been following, and you can see there's still some significant encumbrances there in the boys and girls soccer, $5,000. That's where we're at with student activities. Not a lot going on in the schools so far. A little bit of business carried over from last. That's all I have on that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, our consent agenda, item 8A through H. We could have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
All right, second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Question, we
Yes,
just,
please.
are we aware then that we approved in item consent agenda F? The word there is auction. In capital.
Okay,
And so we've been ordered by our auditors every time we hold an auction.
Oh, so
I don't know if that was clear when we made up the agenda, but
it's not.
you would be approving an auction. Clear on that agenda right there. I think everybody's.
So you corrected it in one place. Which place did you correct it?
do we need to amend the motion?
I don't think so, because
I don't, it's on the agenda.
Agenda item, it's on the
It's on the agenda.
It's the agenda.
the minutes.
it's not on the
It's
cover
not on
sheet.
the cover sheet. It's on the agenda.
We will do whatever you
I,
ask us
I
to
think we're okay.
All right.
It's correct on the cover sheet.
Sounds good, thank you. Item 9A is our personnel report
There is a supplement,
supplement.
so please refer to that as well. We have 6 new certified staff. We've been doing some advertising for our classified staff, and we have 10 new classified staff. We've been getting some good positive traction on that. 4 new classified stubs, 6 resignations, 13 classified changes, 2 certified changes, 8 coaches, and 97 timesheets.
There's not any partridges in a pear tree.
23. I'm sad about this one.
She's going off to bigger and better things. It's, basically a promotion for her,
She's
so.
been really great from the last time. All right, does anyone have anything else to ask or say about tonight's personnel report?
But I will make a motion for the approval of the personnel report.
Yes,
And supplement. With the supplement.
second, thank you. All in favor? Aye, thank you. Now on to business and finance. Item 10A is our consideration and possible action to appoint a member as the district delegate to the Arizona School Board Association.
So this is what Annie was talking about earlier, which is the meeting that occurs after it's the delegate meeting that occurs after the law conference. And so I think it's just, in the next agenda item, there'll be a discussion about what the agenda is. This is just whether somebody, one of the 5 of you would like to represent the district at the delegate conference on the September 10th. I know, Annie, you've done it before.
Yeah.
I don't know if. She did it twice? So I don't know if you want to share your experience or not, and if anyone's even interested in, we don't have to have a representative.
I think you and you guys should.
I am unable to attend that weekend. Peter, you're going to the conference.
Yeah, but
aren't
I'm
you?
coming back on Friday though.
I'd be happy to do it.
There you go.
There we are.
Would you like a hotel the night before?
Well,
Well, it wouldn't be at the Camelback Inn. It'd have to be somewhere else, but do you know what time it's?
yeah, just
It's not bad,
Doesn't-
it's just a lot
doesn't
of
say.
back and
Why
forth.
doesn't say what time.
why don't we have you, Karen will reach out to you?
Yeah.
And decide, you can decide if you need something at that point. So I think it may be something that you want to vote on.
It is. yes, it's an
Yeah.
action item, so.
Okay, I would love to make this.
Okay.
Does that, do, we, will, as a board, delegate the approval of Mike Vogel to be the delegate for Chino Valley Governing Board.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. All right, item 10B is ASBA draft 2023 political agenda. If everyone remembers, we have read over these several times.
This we did in November, or was it been in the springtime? Last spring. So the red, it's a red line version, so you can easily see what changes were made from prior year. The big one is to modernize the aggregate expenditure limit, which was a big deal last January, if you recall. This is what would limit our budget. I don't even want to say a number now because the budget went up so high, so it's in such a amount that it would just be devastating to the school district. We would not, I think we were calculating we'd have to close about spring break last year if that did not pass. And so you can kind of get an idea of what kind of devastation it would do to the district. So that's the big one. And there are some minor changes, full-time funding for preschool programs instead of just funding. There's talk about the override budget process, which really doesn't impact us a whole lot. Something about taking out corporal punishment, which is still legal in Arizona, by the way. Corporal punishment is still legal in Arizona. Talk about something with the CTED. So you can kind of go through, hopefully you've had a chance to go through and review this. I don't know.
John, I've got a concern the way this is structured. The new language on 3 is good. Why is that not number 1? It bothers me. A lot of these priorities bother me, but that one, I just don't understand why that is not sort of down in the others.
Peter, are we looking at section 1,
Yeah,
3? Okay, 1, 3?
yeah, 1, 3, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. No, that's okay. Just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Concerning the aggregate expenditure limit.
Yeah, I mean, that's very specific, and that existing one is just general blather, I'm sorry. That comes every single year and has for year after year. Number 3 ought to be first position, and you can drop several of these others. Because,
Well,
I'm sorry, it just,
no,
in my opinion, I don't understand the logic of what they're doing with this particular piece.
well, I think that's a message you need to get to Mr. Fogel. Mr. Fogel takes it to them on that day because this is the draft agenda. On that day is when they actually come up with the final agenda that's presented.
Good.
So that's a message you want to get to Mike.
Can I give my second message then?
I'm all ears.
This is way, way, way too busy. There are so many wonderful things on here. If I were a politician and I was given, how many pages does this go on for? 4 or 5 pages of policies from ASBA, my eyes would be rolling up in my head. And I've said this before, but I got to say it again because it's on the record. In my opinion, ASBA ought to have 3, no more than 3 policy priorities for a given calendar year. Because other than that, you're going to get lost in all the dialogue. I can tell you what my 3 would be, but I'm not going to go into that other than you've already heard about number 1. I do not understand the logic. Maybe somebody else understands the logic of it's like a little of something in there for everybody. And that to me is not a smart thing to do on a political agenda. Enough said.
Now, don't they take the agenda, this draft agenda though, and then,
They talk
Narrow
about
it
like
down.
every,
right, but then isn't it narrowed down for the final agenda?
yeah, like.
I thought so too.
they'll
Yeah.
spend
Yeah,
like
but I think there was
an
like
hour on this one.
10 or something like that. Andy, do you remember how many they ended up with the last few years? It's still not, I'm saying 3. I mean, if you think of the logic of that, human brain can remember 3 things. They cannot remember 7 or even 10 things. Do you remember how many that they've had in the past?
I don't remember.
Because I thought I've seen them in the past as like 10 or 12 still. But that's neither here. I've vented now.
Well, look on the
Well-
bright side, 10 to 12 is much less than all three of these pages.
Yes.
Yes, Mike.
So, as a politician, I tend to agree with what you're saying. On the other hand, I might comment that the needs are so great that that may be a reflection of a lot of neglect. And so we just need to be reminded. I don't think this list changes much from year to year. Exactly. So it's sort of accumulated
I didn't even get into that part of
over
it.
time.
Yeah, you do not want to hear my full rant on this, which is why I'm happy I do not go to these delegate assemblies.
Right. I'd like to hear it after.
You guys maybe should have
After the
coffee.
session.
You guys should go have coffee.
No.
Just keep it to the two of you so that
Yeah.
we don't have an
Just
open,
don't
open meeting concern.
Right. I've said it on the record, you've got it on the record, and that's all I need to do now. From now on, it's private conversations.
Okay,
Okay.
so we've talked that out, it sounds like. We still have to approve it to forward it to the ASBA.
I will make a motion to approve the ASBA draft 2023 political agenda.
Second?
Seconded.
I'm not gonna vote for it, because I want to see number 3 is number 1.
Completely fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No.
I think we need to itemize things a little.
Do you want to do a roll call vote?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
We've got it. There's only one no.
No, there's
No.
two.
Oh, there's two
Yeah,
no's.
There's two
no,
no's.
but Penny and I both agree.
Yeah, we agreed.
Okay, item 10C is the 2022-2023 COVID-19 guidance for students and staff.
So every year for the past 2 years, this is number 3, we've approved a COVID-19 guidance. So the isolation guidance follows what we have been doing all along, which is, except it's down to 5 days. So if someone tests positive for COVID, it's isolation, which means you stay home, and this is for students or staff for 5 days. And that is from the onset of symptoms or the positive test. And after 5 days, there needs to be at least 24 hours without a fever, and all other symptoms are improving. So that is standard stuff. And the big thing is that we are relying on the Yavapai County Community Health Services to tell us when we have an outbreak. And when we have an outbreak is when we will start notifying parents and staff members that there's a case on campus. And basically that's how we treat other infectious diseases, lice and the flu and things like that. So we're treating it just like any other infectious disease that we have on campus. And just like with any other infectious disease, parents, you need to keep your kids home when they're sick, and staff, you need to stay home when you're sick. That's the message that we need to get across.
Wasn't there a new one this morning that they came out with?
There was some that I understand were coming out, but it wasn't going to change the isolation part.
Okay,
It was actually, they were not going to worry about the 6 feet anymore.
yeah,
Which we could never do.
right.
They were talking about wearing, if you're a close contact, wearing a masks, which we cannot require masks. So it was more relieving changes to the quarantine more than anything else. And with what we have to do, there's not a whole lot we could have done with the quarantine anyway. So but I believe there was some information. I haven't seen it.
I
But-
thought today, and I could be completely wrong, but I thought they said that now they're not even doing isolation. They're just asking you to wear a mask.
Well, I think and maybe I'm missing, or maybe I'm not gonna
And I couldn't
do it
understand.
accurately. We're just asking the children to stay home,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
they should if they're sick.
Yeah.
And I think that there's been
regardless of the disease. There's
some
nothing to say.
using quarantine and isolation interchangeably. Isolation for us means you're sick.
Right.
If you're sick, you stay home for 5 days. The quarantine is what we were using when you were a close contact.
So they will not be quarantining in the
Right.
school.
Okay, and they, so anymore, they do, you guys did the area test if they were around a certain, then they don't have to miss the sport or do anything.
We're not doing that anymore.
Okay.
No more quarantining, which is for close contacts.
Okay.
It's only if you test positive and you're sick, or you're sick, you stay home for 5 days. And really, the most you'd miss would be 4 days of school.
Right.
And it could be as little as 2.
Worst case.
Yeah.
Worst case.
Well, yeah, the best case would be 2 days of missed school because it would be over the weekend. Worst case would be 4 days.
So for the staff, then would they be paid sick time if they were out, or do they get leave for that?
They'd have to use their
When did
sick
they used
leave
to?
for that.
Okay,
We were required to give them COVID leave.
right.
That was 2 years ago. Last year, we did not do that. So they've had to use or it might have been in December or something, there was a change. But we no longer provide free leave for COVID. It's just like as if they're sick for anything else.
And I think as well as it should be.
Yeah.
And we're-
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do too.
I think
I agree.
that's a good choice.
Yep.
All right, again, this is an action item, so if we could get a
I'll make a
motion.
motion to approve the COVID-19 guidance for students and staff.
Second,
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Any nays? Excellent, thank you. Wasn't sure if you're the last one. Item 10D, opting into special assistance provision 2 of the National Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program. It looks like you guys are good.
So I may defer to Mr. Livingston down for some things, but so if you recall, over the past 2 years and a quarter, we've actually been operating under a waiver of the National School Lunch Program that allowed us to give free lunches to all our kids. In addition to that, we were allowed to do carry-out meals for families that could come by and just pick up. Usually it was a week's worth at times or whatever. And so those waivers expired July 1. So that means we'd have to go back where we'd have to do free kids got free lunch, reduced kids would have to pay 40 cents, and the full pay kids would have to pay for the entire meal. Okay, breakfast was going to stay free no matter what. So thanks to John Livingston and Christina Sheriff, who's our food service coordinator liaison. There's actually 3 different programs that we could do. There's one called the Community Eligibility, thank you, program, where everyone gets it free and you don't collect applications. That wasn't going to be financially viable for us, for the district. Then there's the regular program. We're talking about provision 2, which is free lunch and breakfast for all students. However, for year 1, we have to collect applications.
Yeah, I didn't understand what that meant, John. What do we mean when we say collect applicant? Do the parents have to qualify or something, or just fill in some paperwork?
Well, it's the normal applications, free and reduced lunch application that they would normally fill out. And what that does is allow us to figure out a percentage of free and reduced kiddos.
Mhm.
And then we use that percentage for that first year along with the next 3, I believe, John, is it a total of 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. So that percentage stays with us for the first year and the remaining 4. The difference is if it was just community eligibility, we can't include those free and reduced kids that we know we'd get a higher reimbursement for.
Already.
By having them do the normal application process, we get to include those additional free and reduced kids in when we get the reimbursements from the state,
Now, is there an income question on that application?
just like normal.
Mhm.
Right. So we are encouraging everybody to do the application because we want to try to capture people that may not realize that they would qualify. So that's why the message has been going out. If you apply, let us figure it out. The information does not go off to the state of Arizona. It stays locally. And in some cases, if you apply, you may be eligible for other things like the EBT cards. There's cards. Yeah, there's EBT cards that you can get if you qualify. And that comes, all we do is tell the state that you qualify. Your income information does not go to the state. It's just we send you that, send them that information, and that person or that family could qualify for an EBT card. We still have a list of kind of automatic qualifiers. that if you're homeless, you automatically qualify for free lunch. Foster children do, or if you get some kind of public assistance, whether it be like SNAP or something like that. So those families automatically qualify. And then we want to, in addition to those families, pick anyone else that would qualify based on income, keep that information at the district, and then we can use that to apply for the reimbursement down when kids are eating lunch. Anything else you want to add, John, that may be important to that?
Just that we're gonna watch this really closely. I think superintendent's term about, I think it's revenue neutral or cash neutral. We're just gonna have to really monitor that, because if we get into a situation where we know what our food service company is charging us per meal, and let's say that's $3 per meal, and we know what our students that are free and verified as free are bringing in from the federal government for reimbursement, let's say that's $4, those students are okay. Those students are having that 90 or 95 cent surplus. But the other ones, the reduced and paid ones, if those numbers get very high, this works really well if we have 80% free. Works really well, because that 80% free then goes forward next year with no applications, and the next year, no applications, and the next year, no applications. But if we're down at 62, 63% free and 20, 21% reduced and 18 to 20% paid, now it's going to come down to a really fine margin, because our contract price with our provider is set. We know what that's going to be. So in the first month, we'll be able to do a little summary and tell you where we stand.
Now, Mr. Livingston and I have a meeting with Sodexo, our food service provider, end of the month, I believe. And part of the discussion is, we believe, and this is verbally, and we want to put something in writing, that the Sodexo may, if we are where the district would have to use local funds to pay for this program, Sodexo may pick that up for us so that we're revenue neutral. And so if they are committed to that, we could do this no matter what the revenue says, because Sodexo would pick up any loss that we have. Because it behooves them to they're making, what's that, $3? It's a little bit over $3, I think, but they're making $3 a meal. They want to pump out meals. And they're going to pump out a lot more meals if we can give these meals out for free. So they're going to make their money, but they're willing to give up a little bit of their profit to keep us in this program if we can do this.
That means that every kid will be their customer then.
That's, well, potentially, right? There's kids that don't eat, but they have that's by their choice.
Could be, yeah.
So what if you don't fill out that form? What if there's parents that don't fill out? Like I probably threw it away.
Well, we're still trying to get the message out. We have until the middle of September, I believe, to fill those out. I know that Christina Sheriff, I call it the sea of pink, because those applications are pink in color right now. She's got pink applications all over her desk that she puts away every night, but she's doing everything all day. Towards the end of August, we're going to kind of figure out who didn't apply and maybe do some outreach on those. We talked about doing, and we'll talk about it next week, on the possibility of some incentives for families to do it, that kind of thing. So, and again, if you don't think you qualify, we're not worried about that. Let us determine that. Let's not you determine that. So
We would probably move applications that are due but not collected into the paid category. And then it doesn't cost the parent, but then if our ratio, like I was saying, 80%, 50%, if it goes down 50% for free, then we have to really look at not profitability, but just at our break even.
So we're just encouraging everybody to fill out the pink sheet that comes home.
Yeah.
that has, whether you think you're eligible or not.
Exactly.
Just fill it out.
We've had representatives at the Meet the Teacher Night, at our Kinder Jumpstart. We've been doing a good job. There's been things on Facebook about it. We have been good about getting the message out. I think it was in one of the articles that was in the paper. There was a blurb about it, but we are going to continue to get that message out and do some outreach towards the end of the month.
Now, does an application have to be made for each child in the household, or can it be done one and done?
One per family. And if one child qualifies in the household, the entire household does. So we're just asking for authority we've done 3 days of this. We're kind of, this was something that we've been working on for a while, but got there's award letters and stuff in here. But we're just asking for the board to kind of approve it for us to continue forward.
Any other questions, comments on it? Fantastic. Again, this is an action item, so I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve operating the district's food service program under Special Assistance Provision 2 of the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program.
Thank you. A second, please.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I hope to see that success. I hope to see it to succeed. Curriculum, all right. Item 11A, our family life curriculum. It's the public hearing we just had, so like I'm looking at you again.
Okay, as a reminder, we had a presentation in May with the health department. They came and talked all about the curriculum. We had a public hearing in July, public hearing in August, and so now we're asking for your approval of this curriculum so we can have the health department come and start conducting lessons.
When would the first day of lessons be? Do we know?
We had to wait for this before they could put us on their schedule.
Okay. Does anyone have any further questions? I feel like we have asked and been answered quite a bit.
I just want to
It's
make.
not a how-to.
Right.
Which
Which
is
is what I was
fantastic.
gonna ask.
Yeah.
This is basically talking about abstinence.
State law requires it as abstinence-based.
Sorry.
Yeah, because I'm not really fond of going into that part of it either.
Yeah.
With the kids.
Ben?
I actually think this is really good, especially in my opinion, having a daughter that's a freshman and social media. And I think it's really great that we're gonna be teaching that this is.
And the healthy relationships and physical health components really deal strongly with that, because a lot of those boundaries are pretty blurry for kids. And even kids who might be in abusive dating relationships or abusive friendships, it also addresses those things.
And that's the point I was gonna make, you know, yes, it's sex ed, but there's
That's one
so
little, it's one little
much.
piece of it.
Yes,
Broader.
so
Yeah.
much more
Yeah.
involved. Fantastic. Seeing no other questions or comments, I entertain a motion again to
I'll make a
approve this.
motion for the approval of family life curriculum.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Monica. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 11B, determination of excess capacity for open enrollment for the 2022-2023 school year.
This is something that needs to be done annually by the board, and it'll be updated every 12 weeks by the policy if there's a change. But the way that it works is we have a staffing model. Different grades have different class size models. And based on the class size model, we determine a student capacity in each grade level. Then we take 95% and say at 95% capacity, we're going to cut off open enrollment. And the reason is that we want to leave 5% open for new kids moving in, for that move into the district. If a kid's in the district, we got to take them no matter what, whether we're full or not. If a kid lives in the district, we're going to educate them. It's just those that live in neighboring districts and want to come into our school district. And so on the sheet, it has our student capacities, it has our 95% capacities, and our current it says anticipated students. This was updated today. So these are the numbers that we have today. And there's actually two parts. There's just the grade level student capacities. So based on the number of teachers that we have, our class size model, and our anticipated students, what we're seeing is that we would be closed in all grades with the exception of second grade, fifth grade. And this is new, so there's a new one on your desk, sorry, that has been updated.
As soon as I saw you grab it, I said, oh, better look
Yeah.
for it.
The one in the book was numbers before kids we had bottoms and seats, so this has been updated as of today. So it's second grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, and 9th through 12th.
We have room.
That we have open. Everything else would be closed.
What if somebody moves here and they have a fifth grader and it's open, or a sixth grader and it's open, but then they have also another grade that's closed? What do we do then?
So if they live in the district, we're gonna bring them in anyway.
Okay.
If they are coming from an open enrollment situation where they live in Prescott or Prescott Valley, if they have a sibling that is here already, last year, we're gonna enroll them.
Okay.
And there's some, so if they, and I think it's in the motion, it talks about children of employees, current open enroll students, and siblings of current open enroll students are not subject to this policy.
Oh, okay.
But anyone else would be subject to it. New students coming in would be subject to it. Okay, so again, for the grade level student capacities, we only have room in 2nd grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and the high school. There's also another chart that shows our capacities on our special ed programs. And because of our 20+% of students that are special ed right now in the district, we only have 3 programs that are open, and it's our EDP programs.
Actually, we only have one left open right now. We're filling up big time.
Well, and if we do have, if the numbers do go up, these are the capacities, so
Oh, I
we can
got
close them. But as of, and this was not updated today. This was updated last week with the numbers that you gave me last week. So these are just the capacities that we have, and then there may be different numbers and we'll close them as necessary. But it sounds like we may only have one, but as of when this was done, it was 3, which were our EDP programs. And if you look, and this, to Nicole's comment, our staffing, we have in EDP says we can take, so we only have tech open, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right, so the others were pretty close, because if you look at EDP for Del Rio, it's, the staffing model is 12, 80% is 10, and we had 9. And this was as of this, and so it's changed since then. And for EDP at Heritage, we, it increased because of moving some kids. So, so all you're doing is approving the capacities. We update the open enrollment status as they change.
Can I ask Nicole a question?
Sure.
Nicole, are any of these children, do any of them have the possibility of being bused to one of the other programs, or is that just the autism program?
So they have to stay where they're at as far as we try to keep them with their age group as much as possible for socialization and to learn those, social skills from same age peers as much
I
as
just
possible.
wanted to make sure that if we were busing them, that number was still included in these numbers, so that makes sense.
They have to be where they're at.
And we actually, a couple of years ago, started the EDP program.
Right.
Because we were transporting kids to other programs in the area and felt that we just need to bring them in-house and address their needs in-house. So the EDP programs haven't always been around, and so that's why we started it. Because we used to have to transport those kids.
Well, any other comments or questions for either Mr. Shea or Ms. Burdette, or Dr. Burdette, sorry, or anyone else? All right, with that, then we will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the determination of excess kit capacity for the 2022-2023 school year and determine that children of employees, current open enrollment students enrolled in 2021-2022, and the siblings of current open enrollment students enrolled in 21-22 are not subject to the open enrollment policy.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, last one, it looks like we know who's coming up. This is recommendations for early admissions in kindergarten.
Yes. So it's that time of year again, and we have formal requests from 6 parents whose children are not 5 by August 31st. Out of the 6 parents, they all did attend Jumpstart, and the teachers recommend 4 of them to come to kindergarten and 2 to wait a little bit longer. So I'm asking for approval to accept 4 of the early admissions. Or did I do it? Yeah, 4 of the early admissions.
We have plenty of room to bring them
Right now we do.
in. Okay.
Can I
As
ask
of the
a sort of a
second.
general question? The last person there that you're not recommending accepted, you do show that attended preschool. Was there a problem that they did not advance far enough, or was a particular family issue, or?
Just wasn't quite ready. And the preschool teacher told her that as well.
So they just did not progress what you felt they needed, even though they had
She's
participated?
just young.
Now, do they have the option to go back to preschool?
And we held a scholarship for them to go back to preschool.
So they're not out. So they'll be back in preschool this year, they just won't be in kindergarten.
Correct. Or they have enrolled in a different school,
They
a
have the
charter
option.
school. They have the option of enrolling. Charter schools can take them and then we'll be back.
But the charter school will put them in kindergarten then?
They're,
They
no,
can
they
take
have
them.
the same rule that we do. They just don't enforce, they aren't diligent or, we evaluate whether the child is ready for kindergarten or not. And there's some charter schools that will not do that. And they take them all the way through December 31st, which is what's allowed.
I'm not gonna go any further. Thanks, I was just curious because it seemed unusual that somebody who had already participated, you felt was not ready yet.
Any other questions, comments? Well, moving forward with the last motion of the evening. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve or deny early kindergarten entrance for students as per policy.
Okay, second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, all. See you next month.
Don't leave, I gotta go get my bullet.
Okay.
Yep. Need signatures.
Sure you don't want to go to coffee and talk about
What do I need to talk to